This week, a BJ Penn video went viral. He was recording his mother, saying he didn't feel that that was his mother, and the government is trying to take all of his property. And while it's a pretty sad situation, it does raise some questions. What should a fighter's life be like after they fight? Are there obligations from the organization that they fought for to take care of those fighters well beyond their prime fighting years? My name is Angelo. This is Josh Thompson, and welcome to Bad Takes. Josh, you fought in the olden days. You had a long career. You are here doing well. Do you feel that the UFC has some sort of obligation or a strike force or a pride or whoever you fought have some sort of obligation to the athletes beyond the sport? NFL, for example, when a lot of that CTE stuff came to a head and it got diagnosed and became a thing, they literally changed rules. They took care of fighters post their careers, and they sort of changed how a lot of things work. I understand it's a different model where fighters are independent contractors, but do you feel there should be some sort of post-fight healthcare that comes along with a career that, existed for a certain time span?
It's a very difficult situation to talk about. BJ and I have been friends since 1999. I've known BJ for a long time, know his family, stayed at his house, helped him train for a lot of fights, flew out to Hawaii and trained with him, trained with him at AKA when he first started. Most of my career, he's a big reason why I quit my day job and just started training full time so I could get signed by the UFC. Real quick backstory on that is he used to come in during the day and train with Javier Mendez and Frank Shamrock and some other guys, Bob Cook. And I was the guy that I had to work during the day. So I worked all day and came in at night. And I was a night trainer, but I was winning all my fights. And so Bob's like, hey, Bob was my manager at the time. You got to come in and train with Frank and BJ and Brian Johnson and all these guys, Fujita and these guys. I'm like, I can't, man. I need to make money. I got to pay rent and do this and do that. Anyways, they kept telling me about how good this guy was in jiu-jitsu. BJ Penn was. He was, taking Frank Shamrock down, controlling him on the bottom, making it look easy, this and that. And I was like, yeah, whatever. This guy's not as good as me. Can he strike like me? Can he do this? Does he kick? And they're like, bro. And so I said, you know what? Hey, I can't make it during the day, but if he ever wants to come by at night, they brought him by at night. He fucked me up. It was embarrassing. I felt embarrassed. Kid you not, tapped me 3-4 times in less than 5 minutes. We started on the ground, which was his forte. It was all grappling. There was no striking. But I didn't have arms free to really strike. That's how damn good he was. First American to ever go to Brazil and win the Mundials. Like, he just was so talented. Dexterity, strength, positioning. Literally, like that week, I went to my work and just quit my job. I was like,
I need to be better.
Yeah, I can't do this. I can't do this part-time because it's got to be a full-time job. If this is the guy that he'd already just got signed by the UFC, fought Joey Gilbert his first fight in the UFC. This is the guy they're saying that he potentially can make it. I'm like, okay, let me see. Then he goes out and dominates Joey Gilbert. Then he knocks out Dean Thomas, in the first, 2 minutes of the fight, and then it just destroys Carl Uno, who's number 1 or number 2 in the world at the time. Dean Thomas was number 1 in the world at the time. He knocked him out. Like, I'm like, dude, I gotta quit my job. There's just no way, and he hadn't fought in the UFC yet, but I just knew if guys can grapple like this guy, I'm in a lot of trouble. And his physical strength, his ability, all those things. So I got a lot of love for BJ Penn. He helped shape my career, and him and I fought on my very first UFC fight. My second fight. He fought Matt Hughes and beat Matt Hughes that night for the welterweight title. And it was so nice and memorable to share that same card with him and be in the same card. He had gone and left AK at the time. Just a fantastic person, great person, man. He struggled a little bit after his post-fight career. Just lost in what he wants to do. He owns businesses. His family is very big into real estate in Hawaii. The guy doesn't go without. Like, he's got everything he needs. It's hard to take someone who is very mentally strong in terms of his convictions of what he believes in. And who's going to force him to go, whether it's to get rehab or to see a psychologist or a therapist or whatever. Family members can try, but ultimately it comes down to the person that is going through the issues. And so to answer your question though, should the UFC be held accountable? It's hard because I'm not saying this is the case for him, but he got to the UFC. He had no fights when he got to the UFC. They signed him because he was the first American jiu-jitsu guy to ever win, in Brazil. And but then during that time, like other fighters, right? They've had a lot of fights before they get to the UFC. And was the damage created there? And then they're in the UFC and they do, and they do 4 or 5 fights or 10 fights, whatever it is. How long are the UFC responsible for taking care of them for the rest of their life? I mean, is there a time frame on it? What are we doing? There's that question to be asked. And also too, after you leave the sport, I mean, you see it all the time. Guys like Lawrence Taylor in football, drug addictions, had problems with drugs. Like I'm sure that plays a lot of a factor for some of the fighters that leave the sport. Are they addicted to drugs? Or what are they doing after they're done fighting? Are they an alcoholic? I don't know the case with BJ on any of that stuff. I don't get that feeling at all, but I do know that, you know, um, I follow. Obviously, we're good friends and we follow each other on social media and stuff. But I've reached out to him, talked to him a little bit as of lately, and every time I talk to him, he seems just very coherent. Like everything is so normal. Like, yeah, man, still living the island life. Just this and that. Like, we don't talk about anything else other than like how's things going. How have you been? Are you still training? Yeah, training my gyms every once in a while. This and that. But that's it, man. Like, I don't want to dive too much into it, but do I don't. I think you have to set a standard on where. Not a standard. You have to set limits, I think, on how long the UFC is going to be involved if you're going to do it. Does it take shape later? That's the other thing. Like at 10 years after they leave, then does it take? Because look, when I got done fighting, I felt great the first like 3 or 4 years after retirement. But now I'm 5, 6 years into it and I'm feeling like, okay, the memory's not what it used to be. Um, there's been moments where I've been having conversations with people and I'm like, okay, what were we just talking about? And so that kind of feeling. But you notice that as you move on. Is it me getting older or is it me like because of the fighting career? I fought for 22 years. That's a long time to take a lot of shots. And it's not even the fights, it's more of the training that most of your damage is committed on. So I don't know. It's something that do you open Pandora's box? I think with the UFC, like you're opening Pandora's box if we start paying for things afterwards.
It is definitely tricky because, to your point, people don't start there, especially nowadays. They start somewhere else, they
Yep.
build a career, and then they go there. Certainly, I think some health care regarding physical injuries is a little more logical that you can plan.
Mhm.
Okay, you blew your knee out here, you'll have health coverage for X amount of time. Obviously, mental health issues, addiction issues, that's an entirely different
Well, like,
conversation.
let me give you an example. Tim Sylvia, right? Broke his arm against Frank Mir. Had the plate put in. His plate has needed to be taken out because something's wrong with it on the inside. His insurance is basically saying that it's a previous injury and they're not going to cover it.
Uh,
So he's like, hey, I wish the UFC would take care of this. It happened in there. Those are things that I believe, like, hey, the UFC should take care of.
yeah,
Like, I
yeah, that was
literally,
very, very clearly where that
yeah,
happened
because
and
the
how.
main event
Yeah,
broke. It was very clear. He broke his arm in the fight. We all saw it. It's
yeah.
still on video. Once it's on the internet, it lives forever. And those are moments I feel like, okay, look, the plate just needs to be taken out. The bone is healing, but there's something going on. It's creating like a problem inside his arm. It should be taken out, and they should pay for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a conversation that could broaden itself into, should there be a union? What does long-term care look like? Hey, should there be a pension and all of those components? The fundamental difference between the UFC and any of these other major sports are they are independent contractors. You sign a 3-fight deal, a 5-fight deal. You technically, know what you're signing up for, you know what you're getting into, and you can come and go as you please. You can choose not to fight, you can choose to fight. And it does make a very different situation than some of these other sports where you work for an organization. You have a multi-season contract and you have longer term things at play. They still pay Bobby Bonilla. There is a Bobby Bonilla day, 20 years after that man retired. He still gets paid by the Mets every year. And that's because of how those contracts were structured and how those organizations are run. The BJ Penn stuff is obviously sad. It's alarming because it's all happening real time. He's a relatively young guy, and people are just sort of tossing around what does this mean? And is this an isolated BJ Penn thing, or is this a broader thing for a lot of fighters from that generation? It is a tricky environment. I don't know if there are any answers. I think maybe when the class action lawsuit finishes up, or maybe this next generation of superstars will band together, create a situation where there is a fighter union, or sort of change how this all works. But for now, independent contractors sign independent deals, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Let me give you this. So let's take it to another level, or just in a different direction. A lot of what he just said on his social media has to do with the government, has to do with, you know, politicians wearing masks and like the ears and then, but let's be honest. No one ever talked like this until this whole COVID situation. Literally in the last 5 years, it's a shitty situation, but people don't have faith and trust anymore into our government. And the media has been playing into this, whether it's Fox News, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, whatever it is. They play into all this hysteria. And I really think that it fucking has an effect on people in the way they think. And look, he ran for governor, he ran for something else, city council, whatever it was. His family's pretty prominent in the Hawaiian Islands. And so I think in that situation, like he got so involved, so ingrained into the political atmosphere there in Hawaii. I mean, it's easy to feel like, hey, everywhere you go, people are looking at me like, is that person going to try to kill me? Like, it's easy to think that way if you sit at home and watch the fucking news. And so to me, I think just time away, maybe from the islands, period. Like, get them away from all that. Turn the fucking TV off. Don't talk politics. Like, stay away from this trash. That type of stuff really just, it has an effect on people's brains. It really does. So, I'm hoping that that's something that can just be, taken away. Like, get yourself up in the mountains, get yourself, out on a cruise, whatever. Just go somewhere, to spend some time with family and friends and enjoy and detox yourself from all that cancerous shit that just eats away at you inside. I hate it. Like, I mean, I know one of his brothers, I believe, moved to Florida, who he was really close with. Both his brothers he's close with, but one of them moved. He's got a bunch of brothers, by the way. But one of them moved to Florida, I believe. The other one moved to, I think, Maui, something like that. But there's areas to go in the States. Go to the mainland and just try and find your space and your peace there. Do something to get away from all that.
It could definitely be a combination of things. Obviously, the long fighting career, coupled with, like you said, the paranoia that has come the last couple of years. Because what is interesting about the BJ Penn sort of situation right now is it's not typical punch drunk manifestation. It's not fumbling over his words, hard to put together thought. He's putting together coherent thoughts. They're just ridiculous theories. Yeah,
he's not slurring his words. He's not stumbling over, like you said, his words. Like, he's putting together a full on conversation.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. The concept is insane, but like, he's speaking very clearly. He's making his point. His brain is just taking him down a wild journey. So it could be a combination and a different manifestation of his fighting career than what we've seen with other fighters like a Tyson Nam, who is having a hard time speaking right now. So it's a very different environment and very unique in this space.
I guess I'm going to just wrap it up with this. For me, like, anything that gets in the way of my peace, I cut loose. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be my own mother. Like, if you're interrupting my peace and what, how I live my life with my family and my kids and this and that, I'm good. I don't need it. I know it seems harsh to say that, but at the end of the day, it's going to be me, my wife, my 2 kids. And that's it. And my grandkids, hopefully, you know what I mean? But that's going to be it. Like, my mom will be gone. My family will be gone. Like, everyone's going to be gone. Like, at the end of the day, whatever it is that helps you keep your peace amongst your family and keep that's it. Deion Sanders said the same thing. I don't give a shit who you are. If you interrupt my peace, I'm good. I'm cutting you off. That's it. That's the way it goes for me. I think whether he needs to look in that direction, whatever it takes. Cut the politics out.
He definitely could use sort of a refreshed outlook, maybe some sort of, like you said, therapy elsewhere. Take yourself out of the environment, have conversations, see what you can do. I am curious what you guys think, not necessarily about BJ and his situation specifically, but the broader conversation around where does the line end? Who should be helping here, if anybody? Are you responsible for yourself and your well-being, or should there be some culpability at a larger level for the organization that you spent 15, 20, 30 years in? Let us know your take below in the comments.